Haze phenomenon in Southeast Asia is nothing new. ASEAN member countries have been the victim of one of the world's worst transboundary haze since first recorded in 1972. There have been 7 major transboundary haze incidents recorded since 1997. The haze in Southeast Asia is so common and repetitive that it can be treated like a season, and one can expect haze to occur for every 2 to 3 years interval. The effects of large-scale burning are not confined to a particular locale. It is spread so vastly to other countries, hence the term transboundary haze. This increase in pollutant concentration, smoke, and other particulates resulted in a drastic reduction in air quality, known as haze. The transboundary haze is a complex regional issue that affects the economy, politics, and human health in affected ASEAN member countries. However unique, the ASEAN preference of solving problem is based on regional consensus and are often managed bilaterally, without undergoing the rather complicated bureaucracy of regionalization. This is called the ASEAN Way. The ASEAN transboundary haze pollution is considered to be a shared environmental problem, hence should be solved together in the spirit of ASEAN solidarity. The severity of the ASEAN transboundary haze is a prime illustration that calls for an immediate regional action that could transcend the business as usual problem solving. This video will explore the causes and effects of transboundary haze in Southeast Asia, as well as the effectiveness of mitigation measures taken by ASEAN member countries.
Now, let's look at the causes of haze in Southeast Asia. As stated by Hill et al. 2005, vegetation and peat fires are the major direct causes that are responsible for such phenomena. This particularly happened in Riau Province in East Sumatra, South Sumatra, and parts of Kalimantan. The method of slash and burn has been utilized by well-established companies and farmers to clear vegetation for palm oil, pulp, and paper plantations. Such method is considered as cost-effective and easy. Even the local people in Indonesia perceive it as legal and normal thing to do. Furthermore, the utilization of slash and burn on peatland initiate peat fires. According to Dr. Helena Verkey, Indonesia has the world's largest peatland ecosystem, approximately at 5%. Peat swarms eventually form a dome of wet organic material. Once peatland is cleared, it will dry up quickly and prone to fire. Thus, it produces smoke and releases carbon dioxide. According to World Bank, it causes up to 90% of the haze, and majority of peatlands are located in lowland areas of Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Papua of Indonesia. Foreign-owned companies are required to not clear more than 2 hectares of land. However, they fail to do so due to the intention of gaining profit for their business. Some of the companies are Wilmer International, Sinar Mas companies based in Singapore, and Sime Darby, as well as IOI of Malaysia. According to Environment Ministry official of Indonesia, Kemal Amas, a total of 23 companies were sanctioned in 2015, ranging from administrative and license revocation, while other 33 were still under investigation. Corruption and weak governance of the Indonesian authority, as well as lack of data and incomplete concession map on fire burnings, make it difficult to control the clearing patches of land and peat. In addition, the occurrence of El Nino, that is the climate pattern that describes the unusual warming of surface waters in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, between July and October, along with sporadic rain, also further exacerbated the vegetation and peat fires.
Moving on, we will look into the effects of transboundary haze in Southeast Asia. Forest fires are usually started in Indonesia and Malaysia. However, the resultant haze travels its way to neighboring countries in the region, especially Singapore, Brunei, southern Thailand, parts of Vietnam, and the Philippines. The transboundary haze disrupts many activity. However, this video will limit its scope to the economic, human health, and wildlife aspects. Economic activities are greatly impacted as a result of the worsening haze that has blanketed parts of Southeast Asia, which includes businesses such as tourism. For instance, in 2015, Singapore is shrouded in smoky haze from forest fires in neighboring Indonesia, and the pollution levels in the city-state have hit a new record high for 3 days in a row. Tourism is a big revenue earner for Singapore. Industries related to the sector accounts for between 5% and 6% of Singapore's total economic output. The last time the city-state was hit by such bad haze in 1997, tourist arrivals dropped by nearly 15% in a month. There are indications that some tourists have already started to cut short their stay in Singapore, and some have even cancelled their bookings. In 2015, the low visibility due to the haze in Malaysia has affected flights out of Sepang outside Kuala Lumpur, according to AirAsia. About 29 flights were either delayed, diverted, or cancelled because of the haze. The haze also has a significant impact to people's health, not only in Indonesia, as well as the affected neighboring countries such as Singapore and Malaysia. Besides irritating the respiratory tract and the eyes, pollutants in the haze can cause serious long-term damage to health as well. In 2015, according to the government, deaths in Indonesia and respiratory illnesses is around 500,000 people, linked with other diseases such as pneumonia. In addition, people residing or working in haze-affected areas such as firefighters and plantation workers are especially prone to health risks. Even outside of Indonesia, the health impacts of haze are strongly felt. For example, in Singapore, the 1997 haze saw a 12% increase in respiratory illnesses and a 19% rise in occurrence of asthma. During the same period in Malaysia, the number of respiratory patients increased from 250 per day to 800 per day. Simultaneously, there was a huge increase in occurrence of asthma, bronchitis, and conjunctivitis across Malaysia. The total cost of health damage in Malaysia was approximately 129 million ringgit Malaysia during the 1997 haze. Another issue related to haze is the disruption of the Southeast Asia's wildlife. Animals need to breathe, and the presence of smoke and pollutants in the air could cause breathing difficulties for them, just like it does for humans. During the 2006 haze, researchers in Indonesian Borneo or Kalimantan recorded a marked decrease in frequency and duration of Bornean white-bearded gibbon song. The researchers suggested respiratory problems as the likely cause. Knowing how fundamental singing is to territorial defense, communication, and pair bonding, they postulated that reduced singing for extended periods could affect reproduction. Furthermore, orangutans are also at risk during haze. They are tend to be faced with health issues such as acute respiratory problems, flu, and erysipelas, an orangutan disease that might be more prevalent during the smoky season.
Next, we will look into the effectiveness of mitigation measures to combat haze in Southeast Asia. The most important agreement for mitigating haze in Southeast Asia is the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution. It is a legally binding environmental agreement formed in 2002 to reduce haze pollution in Southeast Asia. This chart shows that the 9 ASEAN member countries beside Indonesia had ratified the treaty in 2010. Indonesia only came to ratify the agreement in 2014, about 10 years after the treaty came into force. Despite large share of major haze incidents in Southeast Asia had been caused by Indonesia, the slowness and reluctance of Indonesia in rectifying this treaty is anything but controversial. Under international law, a state is obliged to refrain from acts which can transgress the purpose of the treaty it has signed. The purpose of the Haze Agreement is to prevent and monitor transboundary haze pollution through concerted national efforts and intensified regional and international cooperation. The agreement calls on member states to implement and enforce tougher regulations without providing much in the ways of long-term cooperation or assistance.
Changes have been made to Singapore's Transboundary Haze Pollution Bill after feedback from the public. They include harsher penalties and a broader definition of the owner of the plot of land where the fire has broken out.
When it was first unveiled early this year, the draft Transboundary Haze Pollution Bill proposed a fine of up to $300,000 for those found guilty. Following public feedback, penalties have increased to up to $100,000 for every day that the haze occurs in Singapore. For example, if the haze persists at an unhealthy level and evidence shows it's caused by 3 days of burning, culprits can be fined up to $300,000.
However, the effectiveness of the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze is worthy to be questioned. One may wonder why is it that since 2003, there have still been major haze occurrences in Southeast Asia, especially with the recent 2015 and 2016 ASEAN Haze, which happened after Indonesia joined the agreement.
In conclusion, the Southeast Asian haze is an ongoing problem in which it needs to be dealt with as soon as possible. However, this requires a lot of participation from not just one party, but multiple, ranging from individuals such as farmers and locals, to corporates and organizations such as ASEAN. Furthermore, myriads of changes is needed as ASEAN needs to treat this treaty in a different way, no longer dealing it with the usual ASEAN way, where their style of regional engagement adamantly protects national sovereignty, thus resulting in states acting in their own self-interest rather than regional interest. Furthermore, the close relationships between key economic actors and political allies have meant maintenance of the status quo. Yet changes are possible, as there is multiple recommendations and solutions in regards to this complex situation. Overall, the Southeast Asian haze situation will require as many help needed in order to combat the ongoing effects of the transboundary haze.